So my name is Shiver. Welcome to the Undergraduate Research Education Series. Welcome back if you've attended one of these sessions before. We're going to be learning about data visualization, creating research posters from Greg Hatch today, a wonderful librarian in the Marriott Library here at the U. And then to start us off, I am going to do our land acknowledgement, as we always do, talk about some housekeeping, and then we'll get started with the actual content that you're here to learn about. The American Indian Resource Center leads the way for me to acknowledge that the land that the University of Utah resides on has always been on Indigenous lands, specifically on the lands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. And I encourage you to think about the indigenous peoples of whatever land you're on today if you're not also currently in Salt Lake City. Fill out that Undergraduate Research Education Series evaluation form with your unit. That's the only way that I know that you attended the session and can check that off. And I'll drop a link to that in the chat also for those of you attending in Zoom in real time. It's optional for you, but it's always helpful to get your feedback. Okay.
Back to the start of the presentation.
Okay, welcome y'all. This is Greg Hatch. Thank you so much to Rob, our IT manager, for fixing the 1 million ways that technology can go wrong.
Step over towards me so you're in the camera. Hey.
So I think the first thing that we're going to do is just start off by asking and answering the question, what is a research poster and why does it matter? Why do you even care about the content of this presentation? As many of you are involved in UROP or SPUR or an REU or NARI or all of these other summer research programs, one of the expectations of those programs is to make a poster. So why is that? Why do we make you do this horrible, horrible thing that's really hard and we have to have a whole info session on how to do it? It does a couple of things for you. One, it kind of wraps up your research experience, the research project, your commitment to the public in terms of research, right? Especially if you've gotten any funding, being able to share that information out publicly is, an ethical obligation, but it's also a skill that we want to help you build. So it kind of wraps up your experience. That's one thing. Two, it's a nice prop to be able to talk about the stuff that you've done in your project in simple, quick, often with a research poster, these conversations go by really quickly. So in a kind of boiled down, simple and quick fashion. So I think one of our previous info sessions on creating posters always says like the researcher is a prop and you are the thing that you're presenting to your public audience. And so you don't want to put all of your content on the poster. You want to kind of selectively choose and highlight the things that are going to make it easier for you to talk about the work you've done, your skills, you as a researcher.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. I'm going to go back to that first slide and talk a little bit about my co-presenter who was not able to be here today. Donna Baluki is a librarian at the Eccles Health Sciences Library, and she has a great deal of expertise in graphic design. She has a degree in this area, but ended up becoming a librarian in medical libraries. So she also knows a lot about scientific presentations and research. So she's a great partner. She wasn't able to be here today. She will be recording her portion of the presentation, and that will be uploaded with this video. So I want you to come back in a day or two when that's ready and re-listen to the first part of this presentation, which I am going to talk about very cursorily, and she will fill in the blanks later. So this first particular detail, visual communication, that was the reason why we were asked to present today. How does one go about presenting information in a visual way? You just heard that we want to avoid putting all of the text and all of the words about your research onto a poster, and you want to focus more on a visual display. The reason for this is people aren't going to spend 10 minutes standing in front of your poster during your poster session. Instead, you want a visual element that will capture their interest from across the room, draw them over to you. They will be able to capture some of your information through a quick glance at the poster, get an idea of it through a large title, some visual elements, and then you can engage in a conversation. So we're going to be focusing on how you can lay out your poster as well as add visual elements to engage your audience and draw them to you. So she put up two side-by-side posters into this slide to give you an idea of what she believes to be a good example and a bad example of posters with regard to their visual communication elements. You can see the poster on the left, very busy, lots of colors that are clashing with one another. The font of the title has drop shadow, which is making it difficult to read. The red on yellow text is difficult to read. There's no space for sort of breathing room within this particular poster. On the right-hand side, on the other hand, we have a good example of visual communication. There are colors that are helping to indicate areas of interest and association with one another. There are lines that are drawing from a center element out to sub-elements. There's iconography. We can see clusters of computers or data sets, and then minimal text labeling each of those images. So that's a little bit about what we're talking about with regard to designing a poster. There are many different parties who will give you their perspective on what are the important elements of design. Donna has selected this particular poster as hitting the highlights that they believe are most important when you are thinking about the visual presentation within your poster. These include line. Line can be horizontal and vertical breakups of your space, drawing your eye, your reader's eye, across or down vertically through the logical flow of your presentation. Shape is a quick way to communicate information. You can put shapes behind or underneath elements to help to establish that they are a similar item. Space, white space, giving the viewer's eye room to see the individual elements and allow them and not have your content overflowing with one another. Using the element of size, you could have several small elements just to show that they are part of your research, and then have one larger element to bring focus or draw focus to it. This could be a series of related elements, or it could be one large image on your poster that will draw attention to it, and then smaller images elsewhere when somebody finally walks up and starts engaging with you on your poster, they can see these smaller things. And color is the last one that I'm going to talk about. Color is something that can help to establish categories, as I said before, but it can also be overdone. Too much color ends up causing more visual chaos in your poster. And we're going to take some time and look at these elements in real posters and critique together with later in the presentation here. So things that you want to be asking yourself as you are creating your poster. Thinking about the size. How big is each section? Thinking about how important each element is. Your main title, subtitle, the names of the presenters, your introduction, your conclusions, any of the actual research data that you're presenting on the screen. So thinking about the size. This also is included in the font sizes, and we'll talk about that in a moment. With regard to font, it's important not to overwhelm your poster. Choose 1 to 2 different fonts, and that is enough. Fonts should not be used to help distinguish between elements. You can, between different sections of your poster, you can use other elements like shapes, white space, size of the font, rather than multiple fonts. You can see how chaotic, even on the left-hand side there next to the word font, grabbing some really perhaps elegant but overly ornate fonts. So we also want to be choosing things that are easy to read. In an online world, sans serif fonts are easy to read. In a poster session, you might actually choose serif fonts. Serif fonts are the ones that have the little feet on the edge of the letters, sort of drawing the line. It's what you would find in a printed book, if you want to look at the difference. Color. So we've already talked about this. Choose 2 to 3, maybe 4 colors maximum. I would include white and black as defaults, so you could have up to 3 or 4 colors beyond those, unless white and black are prominent visual elements in your presentation. Then I would count those as one of your 3 to 4. And then layout, we've already talked about this. Think about making sure that you have enough white space in your poster so that people can see each of the elements clearly. One more thing that Donna wanted to talk about, as somebody who crosses over between the arts and humanities and is now working in the hard sciences at the Health Sciences Museum, Library, is the difference between scientific and creative posters. And in another way, she wanted to talk about the difference between presenting qualitative research and quantitative research. Now, we know that research in the humanities can have quantitative elements, and we know that research in the sciences can have qualitative elements. But when you are thinking about those various forms of data, it's a good reminder. Data in the arts and humanities, in the qualitative research, and in social sciences. It might be quotes from an interview that you have with a patient, so anecdotes and stories that people are telling about their experiences. Those can be included as data and put as quotes onto a poster. You can have graphical images, you could have photographs. If you are doing research in an archive, you could take a photograph of various elements sitting on a table and document the objects that you were using for your primary research. Looking more at the quantitative side, we have more traditional research data. You are looking at statistics, creating graphs and charts that would incorporate or show some of the research conclusions that you have from that data, and creating various data visualizations. I am going to be showing you next some of the tools that we provide access to through the University of Utah, those types of data visualizations, as well as finding some images and graphics and photographs that you can incorporate into posters. So, as the slide says, PowerPoint is the industry standard. I believe it to be true that the PowerPoint, which is a tool designed for presentations, I'm using PowerPoint right now for this presentation, is equally successful at creating posters. There are some who may disagree, and people who have more advanced degrees or more advanced experience in graphic design who would use tools like the two that I have listed up here, InDesign, which is an Adobe product, and LaTeX, which is an open source tool. I'm going to click on the links for all 3 of these so that you can see where you have access to these. The University of Utah offers the entire Microsoft Office suite available to you as students, and you can download it from the Office of Software Licensing. It's also installed on every single computer on campus. If you go to a lab in the dorms, if you go to a lab in the library, in the union, all of those computers have PowerPoint and the rest of the Office suite. So you have free and open access to it. But if you're not familiar with PowerPoint, there is a tool linked right here in the presentation. And I should say, you will be getting this presentation as a attachment or a bonus item for this presentation so that you can follow the links. But I've also put up all of the URLs, so you can always directly into the browser and find these websites as well. I'm going to open up the training tools for Adobe InDesign. The Adobe company actually offers a large number of online training tutorials, video tutorials for their products, and they're quite excellent. They break it down into various components or various steps within each of those tools. So if you really want to stretch yourself and try something like InDesign or Photoshop and creating some of your visual content, it's a great place to go. And once again, the University of Utah has purchased a site license for you. The Creative Cloud is the site license for Adobe. So you can have access to a large number of Adobe software packages, and those are once again available at the University of Utah's Office of Software Licensing. When you go into PowerPoint, the most important thing for you to do first is to establish the size of the slide that you are designing. You want to change the dimensions of the slide from the default, which is 3 or 4 inches, to 36 inches by 48 inches, or whatever the parameters are for your particular poster session. It's important to note what the poster board size is. If you're presenting at a conference and they tell you that your poster board must fit on a 3 by 3 foot bulletin board, you don't want a 4 foot wide poster because you won't be able to see it. You won't be able to pin it up. When you go to print a poster, if you have not pre-selected the size, you cannot upscale it after you've finished the design. It won't work. So you must establish the dimensions right away. If you are using the downloaded desktop version of PowerPoint, you want to look for the page setup elements. If you are using the web version, you want to look for slide size, and that is where you will be able to type in the dimensions of your poster in inches or in centimeters, depending on where you're giving your presentation. It's also for you to know, as you start adding visual elements into your poster, you are going to be working on a screen that's all of maybe 18 inches wide and a foot tall. And visual elements will look crisp and clean and well pixelated when you're looking at your computer. But at the time that you then print it and you expand that multi-fold into a 3 foot by 4 foot poster or 2 foot by 3 foot poster, those images need to be able to stretch. And if you don't have a high resolution image embedded into your poster, it will end up pixelated. It will end up looking like polka dots and it will end up looking blurry. So I want to point out that I have where's my mouse? A link here to Adobe, and they have a website that talks about resolution and also tells you how to use Photoshop as a tool to open up an image, and you can then see the resolution of that image. Resolution is referring to the number of pixels, the number of polka dots that are embedded inside of a digital image. And if you have less than 300, your image, when it is printed on a large poster, will begin to look degraded. It will begin to look a little blurry. For contrast, the web images that go onto a website or into a PowerPoint presentation like this require 72 pixels per inch, or in a presentation like this, maybe 150. So posters, printed material require a much higher level of resolution. The last thing that you need to know is thinking about the font size. Once again, when you're looking at your screen, a maybe 20-point font looks plenty big visually to you, but when you blow up that poster, it's going to be much too small. So I've made some recommendations for font sizes here. Other people have different opinions, but if you're in this ballpark, you've made some good choices. So I encourage you to establish beforehand what is going to be the font size for my main title. In this particular case, I'm recommending 85 point. That is visible and legible from 10 to 15 feet away. So as somebody is walking down the aisle, they will be able to read the title of your poster clearly. I recommend that headings like section headings in your poster have somewhere between a 60 and a 70 point font. The subheadings can have a 45 to 55 point font. And the main body of your text should be between 30 and 36 points. This is legible up to 6 feet away, which in this COVID era is the ideal distance for somebody to be looking at your poster and having a conversation with you. So, the University of Utah Office for Undergraduate Research has created a number of templates, making it easy for you to jump in feet first into a PowerPoint poster presentation. You could take these templates, replace their placeholder data, their placeholder images, their placeholder text with your own text as a starting place. And from that point, you can then begin manipulating things like the layout, the size, how much space you want to give to individual elements, the colors that you are embedding, adding images, that sort of thing. But it's important to keep in mind the expectations of the posters as expressed on the Office of Undergraduate Research website. They refer to the fact that your poster display should be well organized and look professional, that the layout should be presenting your research efficiently. So efficiently meaning as few words as possible to communicate what you need to get across. The graphics should express content effectively, making sure that the image that you are choosing is communicating what you think it's communicating. And also sort of related to the layout, thinking about making your text the beginning of your poster and where you would want somebody to go to start and make their way through the poster if you were not standing next to it, but that flow is discernible. I want to make a point now about text and thinking about what we talked about just a moment ago with regard to font size. I want you to choose the size of your font right away. And then as you begin adding in titles, adding in subtitles, adding in body text, if they don't fit within the space that you have created, you should edit your text. Write less, write more efficiently. You do not need to use full sentences in English. You can be abbreviated, you can use bullet points just like you see in my presentation. And I will say, when I was making this presentation, Donna and I had chosen 36-point font for titles, 20-point font for text, and we didn't stray from that. So when things didn't fit into my PowerPoint presentation, I found a shorter way to describe the content because I knew I'd be able to have a conversation with you and talk you through it. So there's a link here for the University of Utah branded templates. We have them embedded on a library guide that was created by a colleague of mine at the Marriott Library, Doreen Nesdell. Doreen, unfortunately, is retiring in about a month. But this has lots of useful information, similar to the presentation that I've given you here today, well worth a read. But within this particular LibGuide, you click on the tab for the poster top to bottom, and you will see on the left-hand side, poster templates, 2 of them that were created by Doreen, and a number of templates that were created by the Office for Undergraduate Research. And this is an example of one of those here. They have a wide variety of columns, 2, 3, 4 column varieties, a variety of different banners, backgrounds, and logos on each of those. So choose the one that makes sense to you. And then, as I said before, start changing all of the other elements once you have your basic information in place. So let's talk a little more in depth about color. Color does help to convey meaning and provides focus to your poster. I know that we culturally all have an understanding of color. When we see the color red, for those of us who can see red, we think danger, alert, stop, pay attention, important, right? It has that sort of understanding. It also means University of Utah. And if you use one of the poster templates that you saw on the previous screen, 90%, that's my guess, 90% of the posters at this year's UROP poster presentation will have red as a dominant color. If you want to stand out, you will choose other colors that complement the red or get rid of the red altogether. PowerPoint itself does have themes. You can take the PowerPoint templates that were created by UROP and the Marriott Library and select the PowerPoint themes, which is in the design menu, and it will automatically choose or overlay a different colored background and provide you with a color palette that is already pre-coordinated, colors that work well together, and you can then choose 3 or 4 colors from that palette as the colors of your font, colors of the background of your boxes, etc. If you want to go your own, there are some really great tools. These are really fun to use, whether or not you're doing a poster or creating a website, or you're creating a flyer for a lost dog, whatever it might be. They're just fun to explore. The Adobe Color Wheel is the first one that I have a link to here. I don't need the tour. We'll avoid that. So here we have the color wheel. I can choose based on this teal color here in the letter C box, we can look at a monochromatic set of 5 colors. We can look at a triad, and it's finding colors that are complementary or directly opposite, and therefore complementary in another way. I think it's just a fantastic tool to play. You can use this little slider and drag it around to find a color, your base color in box C that you like best. And you'll notice on the bottom, underneath each of these colors, this 6-digit or alphanumeric code. This is called a hex code. And it is this 6-digit code that you will transfer over into PowerPoint. Let me go back to my presentation. You will enter that 6-digit code into PowerPoint in the color selector. There's another tool, Material Palette is another one that I found very useful and very entertaining, and it is even more pre-coordinated. You can choose one base color. So why don't we go for like a Utah red here, and another complementary color that we're interested in. I'm going to go with gray. And once I've chosen 2 colors, it now shows you a palette of 8 colors that will all work complementary with one another. And once again, there are hexadecimal letters, alphanumeric codes that are embedded on each of these. So you can copy that code and move it over into PowerPoint. There's a little bit of a challenge. When you are designing on a computer, you are looking at colors that are what's known as additive. It is projected light, is projecting from the screen into your eyes. And color that is blended through light gives us, we use different base colors in combination to create a final color because it is projected light. Printed objects, like your poster, will in fact be subtractive color or color that is reflected. Basic science, sunlight hits the object, the color is actually absorbed into the print, and everything that bounces off is what has not been absorbed, and that's how we see the light. So it's actually the opposite sort of color. A computer screen can generate over 16 million different colors. The highest end color printers can do somewhere around 200 distinct colors. So it's important for you to know that the perception of color that you're seeing on screen is a brighter hue. It is a brighter tint, that's the official word, versus what will come out in the poster, which will seem a little more muted, a little darker, or a shade. So it'll appear as though there was been just a little bit of black pigment that has been added to your color. If you're happy with the colors on your screen, but you have and you want them to be exactly precise, exactly what you saw on that screen, I highly recommend doing a test print first. Print a very small version of your poster wherever you're going to be printing your poster and make sure that the colors look right. Otherwise, the bottom line comment that I put down here is that every computer screen shows color differently, every printer prints color differently, and if I just want to say, maybe be comfortable with those differences if they'll be close enough for most posters. So, all right, now on to what I think is considered to be the more challenging of data visualization, or sorry, of visual communication, which is creating your own visual content. I'm going to be showing you a couple of tools that we think are really useful for importing research data, the sort of numbers and words kind of research data, more aligned with quantitative research in the STEM fields. These include the 6 that I have up here. These are by no means the only ones, but they are the ones that we have tried and can recommend. So I'm going to click on them individually. We'll talk a little bit about them. Visualizingdata.com is a website that has actually put together a huge list of data visualization tools. Many of them are free, not all of them. Many of the for a fee data visualization tools actually have some free components. You pay a price in one way or another. You either have to look at ads, they put a watermark on the exported image, or you only have limited features and capacities or storage. You can only make 1 design or 2 designs, and you can't store them beyond the work that you're doing, something along those lines. But it's really a fantastic website. Great for you to choose the category of data visualization tools, such as charting tools. So I can click on that sort of gold bar there, and it brings forward all of the various tools that they are familiar with for you to explore. I cannot vouch for most of these because I haven't used them. They are changing all the time over the years, but definitely a fantastic place to come and explore and see if there's a tool that matches your particular research data need in creating a visualization. So of all of the ones that were recommended up there, one that has been created by a nonprofit agency, and you can use this tool unlimited, and there are no watermarks associated with it, is called Raw Graphs. This is really sort of the grandparent of free online data visualization tools. It's been around for a decade, and they really have perfected the process. If you look down here, I have this same screenshot on my PowerPoint slide. You can see the types of data visualizations that are possible within this particular tool. If you have a clean data set, if you have a data set that lives within an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file, it is perfectly suited for using this particular tool and exporting any number of these types of charts and graphs. Look at time. We got about 10 minutes here. Tableau Public. Tableau is a for a fee tool, but the public version does provide access to a fair amount of features, and you are able to save and export your content. I believe the caveat on that one is that your exports become publicly visible. So your research data will be shared with the rest of the world. It's part of the use of Tableau. ArcGIS is specifically for creating mapping structures. GIS stands for Geospatial Information Systems, and we have an expert at the Marriott Library for GIS. He has already created an ArcGIS online guide. That's Justin. He has drop-in sessions twice a week on Mondays and Tuesday mornings at the Marriott Library. So check out his website and learn more about ArcGIS. I will say Tableau and Tableau Public are also sort of a mapping tool, mapping data, often aligned with zip codes and area codes, that sort of thing. The web plot digitizer is one that was recommended by a previous presenter to UROP, an engineer who thinks that this is probably the best tool for creating infographics or data visualizations for data and being able to customize all of the details, all of the x-axis and y-axis details that end up being printed in this particular tool. So I'll take his recommendation on that. And the last one is data-driven documents, or D3. This is once again a open source tool, not one that I am familiar with, but it is one that is highly regarded by any number of professionals in the STEM fields who are creating their own data visualization. So all of these tools are available for you to experiment with. And I would say that there are online training tools associated with each of these. Each of these particular tools has training tools embedded within them. So now we're going to move on to more of the sort of arts and humanities oriented data visualizations or images. If you are looking for existing images, there are any number of databases that the Marriott Library subscribes to that provide images from a wide variety of fields. For example, these are just 3 magazines that I chose, Jet, Ebony, and Vogue. We have full runs of these magazines, and you can go in and see all of the images that were published in these particular sources. It might seem on the surface that these might be useful for fashion, but they're actually really great for historical, cultural context. They're really great for marketing and advertising, finding a representation of a particular time in this particular case, American history, although Vogue is very much an international magazine. So those are just some examples. We have many, many more arts and humanities oriented magazines that are available in a digital format at the Marriott Library. Birds of the World is a database that focuses on ornithology in particular and has really great details on detailed photographs of the various specimens. I'm listing JSTOR and ArtStore. These are sibling databases. JSTOR is short for journal storage. ArtStore is short for art storage. And they are both run by a not-for-profit company. We pay a subscription to have access to these tools. They are not freely available on the web, but through your access, through your UNID, you have access to their resources. And they, ArtStore is now somewhere around, I think, 25 million images inside of it, and JSTOR has access to all of those images as well. These are art in a sort of broad sense. It includes architecture and the performing arts, and its paintings and its cultural objects. It really is across the board and really a great resource. Moreover, they have indications within the database when the images are available for reuse in a scholarly publication. We're going to talk a little bit about copyright in a moment here, but they have pre-cleared any number of images that can be published and presented publicly. So that's a really nice detail or feature in that particular database. Another one that I thought might be of interest to those of you in the STEM fields, or in particular in human science fields, anatomy.tv, as well as the Imaging Reference Center, have lots of high resolution images of the human body. So you can find all of those databases by following the link up at the top of the screen, and then choosing databases by type and sliding down to images. Those are the image databases, and there's plenty more here. These are ones that we feel have a large number of images, but it's worth noting that every single database under every single topic will have images within the published articles themselves. So really, every single research database technically is also an image database. I want to talk a little bit about copyright and fair use and attribution. When you are pulling an image off of any of these databases, when you are using an image that was created by somebody else, it's important for you to give attribution, whether or not that particular resource is free on the web, if it is or is not covered under fair use, whether or not something is has never been covered by copyright. Attribution is important so that you give credit where credit is due and you're not claiming yourself to be the generator of that particular information. I'm going to see if I can, yes. With regard to copyright, within the United States, there's the US Code for Copyright, which is Title 17 in the US Code. And under section 107, there is an element that refers to fair use. And this is the legal exemption to copyrighted materials. So let me take a step back. Any object that is in a fixed format is copyrighted. This presentation, this PowerPoint presentation, automatically copyrighted in the United States. The recording of this presentation, once it goes online, copyrighted. Technically copyrighted. As employees of the university, students and faculty have the right to keep their copyright of all of their research. So the poster that you're creating is your copyrighted object. The copyright exemption, fair use, says that there are some cases when you can use a copyrighted work and not have to ask for permission from the copyright holder first. And those exemptions are for purposes of criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. These are considered to not be an infringement. I want to say that it is personal research and personal scholarship. If you are publishing a book and you have an image that you have pulled as representative within your research, you are free to use it for the research purpose. But if you want to reproduce that image in a book for sale, you have now crossed over into a sort of a public realm and no longer just for the scholarly purpose. So for your posters, this is an educational experience. This is for research, for scholarship, and I personally would choose to exercise fair use in using images that were created by somebody else for my poster. However, if I have this poster and I'm going to be putting it up onto my personal website and sharing it and advertising it across social media, I might think twice about utilizing copyrighted materials, if that makes any sense. And if you have any further questions about that, I am more than happy to have a conversation with you, or you can reach out to the Marriott Library's copyright librarian as well, but I can get you connected to that person later. All right, next slide. Image repositories on the web. So there are free places to find images as well. I have listed a number of them here. I'm not going to link out to them, but you can find them on my visual communication guide. You can also find them by name, as you see on the title here. The Noun Project is a fantastic place where you can go and find drawings and images. The search feature requires you to use a noun. You cannot look up verbs. You can't look up adverbs. You must look up nouns, and it will then bring back images that were created by graphic designers. And there are terms of use limits on these. Some of them say you can download and use for your own personal use on your own website, free to use whatever you want. Others will say a donation of $1 and you can use this however you want, something like that. It's a very reasonable exchange and I highly recommend it. And you can see some examples of the types of images that come up into that, line drawings and such. And they are entirely editable. You can then go in and change the background color, that sort of thing, if you pay for them, if they're freely available. So, Flickr and Openverse are now both offering Creative Commons licensing for copyrighted materials. Creative Commons is sort of the grassroots version of copyright. Somebody is a copyright holder. As I said, you take a photograph, you make a drawing, you own the copyright, but you can use the Creative Commons license to release that object out into the wild for people to use under certain conditions. And it's well worth looking at those websites, because the people who have posted images into the Creative Commons are putting it there for you to make use of, to take advantage of. The Smithsonian is the Museum of the United States. It belongs to the US government, and the objects and resources in those websites are often released with under certain conditions for you to be able to use those. So again, look for terms of service or terms of use on the website, but high resolution images of classic American heritage images within the Smithsonian. And looking a little beyond, Europeana and DPLA are the Digital Public Library of America. They have digital recordings, images, moving images, audio recordings of cultural heritage from around the United States, Canada, and Europe. I have not found an equivalent of these particular resources in other parts of the globe, but I will continue to search for those, and I will update my guide as I find those. So I'm looking at the time. How are we for going past our hour, since we had all of the technical snafus?
I'm going to say keep going.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to repeat this for the people on the same side. Keep going, and then tell them that they can make it.
Yeah. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna jump to the very end. We'll do the practice stuff, but I want to get to the meaty stuff here, which is how do I print a poster in the first place? So the Marriott Library offers the best deal in poster printing in the country. I can vouch for that. As somebody who didn't want to carry a poster with me when I was traveling across the country and chose to print it at FedEx Kinko's in another city, I paid up to 5 times as much as what the University of Utah is charging. So the Marriott Library on level 2 in the Knowledge Commons, you can see a map of that here. Where you see that little question mark on the screen, that is where the poster printing happens. You can find out more information about how to create a file that will print correctly at on our large scale printer. There's the website there, but the most important thing to know is that if you are using PowerPoint, you must export from PowerPoint into a PDF first. Then, using Adobe Acrobat, open up the PDF and export again into a JPEG file. Not a JPEG 2000, but a JPEG. I can't explain the technology behind this. I can just tell you that if you skip and jump directly to JPEG out of PowerPoint, you will be sorely disappointed and you will be printing again. So I'll leave it at that. There are a number of poster design resources that I've referred to here, and many more linked on this slide here. So you can come visit the end of the PowerPoint presentation and find those. In particular, I want to point out the new YouTube site, a YouTube channel for the Office of Undergraduate Research, and in particular, a video that was offered by Dr. Sparks. He's the, I believe, engineering professor who gave this presentation a year or 2 ago, and he has fantastic things to say about STEM related data visualizations. So look for his video, Creating Effective Research Posters, well worth the watch. And the last thing that I want to talk about is Donna and my calendars and your ability to schedule consultation time with us. We both use the university's Outlook tool for bookings. The links here are live. We'll go direct to our websites and look at our calendars, find a 50-minute time slot that both you and schedule it, add a little detail the under consultation is for, and then we'll work to, we'll meet with you and work, and you can do that either virtually or in person. Both of us offer both options. So back, we're going to do a little bit of critiquing of posters. Let's find my first slide. Oh yeah, absolutely. So if we are 5 minutes due to the technical difficulties that we had at the beginning, we haven't gotten through the entire presentation. For those of you who have to go, please feel free to leave. The rest of the presentation will continue recording. You can come back and watch everything that happens after whatever the hour or 45-minute mark, depending on how we edit the video. So, all right. So I'm going to go to some slide, and I think this is a really useful website. We've talked a lot about the elements of design in a poster. Oh, do we have questions? Maybe I'll do a Q&A if there's any questions before we get to this, just in case. This particular website was created by two gentlemen who are graphic designers, website designers, poster designers, who are also heavily involved in the STEM research areas. And they have some really great recommendations for creating scientific posters. There's been a movement in the last few years, moving away from text-dense and honestly boring science posters into posters that are visually engaging and draw the visitor in and lead to the primary purpose of poster sessions, which is conversation with the researcher. So we're going to take a look at their website and see how the elements that they are interested in and that they want to promote, and do a little bit of critiquing. And then we'll do the same. I'm going to slide down. You are certainly welcome to take a look and read this particular website in more depth on your own. So they're showing a classic example, a STEM or scientific research poster on the left-hand side of your screen there, represented with just the black and the white. Nice large title at the top, very text-dense subheadings. You can't read any of this. There's no way you'll get through this poster in under 10 minutes. Plus a couple of graphs and charts showing the remarkable research. They recommend, on the other hand, something that is visually appealing. One, it's got color. It's got 2 or 3 colors that are complementary to each other and are appealing to the eye. They still have a few banners, subheadings here that draw attention to the zones on the screen. But what they really have is this very nice visual graphic that draws attention from 10, 15 feet away, where somebody says, oh, I want to learn more about this particular cell structure. And then they have some infographics on the left-hand side that don't necessarily have much detail underneath them, but instead are a reference point for the researcher to say, well, in step 1, I did this, in step 2, we learned that, and then we did this, and then we concluded that. So something along those lines. So that's the basic structure. So let's take a look at the first poster that they're evaluating here, which they're referring to James Bond versus Super. And they've taken this very colorful, graphic, intense poster, which is a real poster that somebody created. Katerina Richter is the name underneath there. And they have they've distilled it down into its various elements. And you can very quickly see the choices that Katerina made. So Katerina has a logo in the upper left-hand corner, a title that is offset to the right-hand side, and they say it obeys the rules of thirds. This is a visual graphic design rule, something along the lines of important that you want to see in a photograph or in a graphic into the 1/3. I'm going to step into the 1/3 of the screen. My head is now in the 1/3 of the top of the screen and 1/3 of the right-hand side of the screen. So that's what they're talking about there. It's just how the human brain works. They've got one big graphical image at the top that has drawn somebody's attention. And then they have a few banners and some colorful graphics down below. But they've got a critique. So right off the bat, they can say it catches our attention. We like the comic book design. It's sort of entertaining here. They like the title that this particular person chose. It's catchy. It has an alliteration, meaning that it has 2 words starting with the same letter. So from bench to bedside. Their color scheme is limited. They have this primary color of blue, along with the basics, the salt and pepper of black and white, plus an accent color, so it's not terribly overwhelming. However, they do have some critiques on this particular one. Let me get that centered out. They say that the text is minimal. They limited themselves to 2 columns, and they've pointed out their the key figures, and they've offered a QR code leading you to more of the research data. So, but what did they say could be improved? They think that this particular poster could use some more white space, some negative space for the eye to breathe, so to speak. And they say that you can get lost in the paragraph, so more line spacing in between the words, which also creates negative space. So if we take a look at that, there isn't a lot of negative space in between all of this texty area and the labels of the subheadings. So let's take a look at the next poster and maybe do our own assessment. What are some of the elements that you're seeing in this particular poster that we've been talking about? Just take a moment and think to yourself about what the various design elements. What do you see with regard to line, rhythm, pattern, shape, color, font, size? All of those things are represented here in one way or another, right? So they've broken it down once again and distilled it into its basic elements. We've got a large, impressive title, it says. We have various text boxes. We have a nice flow from heading. You can see this dotted line, literally a line sort of taking you through. Remember, narrative flow being obvious is something that the University of Utah Office of Undergraduate Research promotes, being able to get from point A to Z and know that you're following the right path. So this is a great way to do that. We have some small logos and contact information down at the bottom. But more than anything, we have the eye-catching graphics, something that draws somebody in to come and have a conversation. I have to say, if I saw this bird on a poster, I'd be right there looking for it. I want to know what they are talking about. So, but it's not a perfect poster. What do they think could be improved? Honestly, it's hard to critique this one, but if we were going to nitpick, we would have to say, have a small take-home message at the bottom of the poster that summarizes the body and its conclusions. And the font sizes could have been more consistent. Remember, we talked about choosing a variety of 2 or 3 different font sizes, and they go overboard. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4 with bold, 5 with the headings here, 6, 7, maybe even 8 down here with that small contact information. So 8 different font sizes and colors on that screen. So they could have chosen a few less to be more consistent. And let's take again a look at the next one, thinking about all those design elements. Is it big enough for you to see? Should I zoom in a little bit? Well, that's true enough. Maybe I'll go one less. Oh. So without even looking at their critiques, I would say that the black background color is maybe a little intense for the font size that we're seeing. The contrast is not distinct enough for me to be able to read all of the letters on this particular poster, the yellow and the off yellow, off white color here. So it's not standing out. So legibility is a bit of an issue for me here. I also think that I really like the flow that they've sort of built in these arrows right into the borders of the backgrounds behind the headings. So it takes me across, telling me I read from left to right, top to bottom, in that order. So one good thing, one bad thing, and they have a critique here, of course. What can be improved? More negative space is needed. So there's too much clutter on this particular poster, especially with a busy black background. So we agree on that. So I'm going to escape from this, and I'm going to offer to you 2 more posters to look at, just to show you that while Donna and I can present ourselves as knowledgeable people for data visualization and visual communication. We are also not experts. And we have some old posters that we want to show you from years ago that we have created and want your own sort of honest critique of our presentations here. So this one is a poster that Donna created. If I'm being honest, I'm looking at it. The red and the pink is very intense. It's maybe not as much of a contrast between the colors as I would like. So I would maybe ask her to choose one or the other and maybe use pink as a highlight color rather than as a background color for the various subsections, the background, that sort of thing. I would say the font size for the subheadings is too small. It's too close to the same size as the body. So I can't find background, can't find methods nearly as easily. And there's plenty of space for a larger font to go across the top of each of those sections. So I would say that as well. I really like the graphic in the middle. That certainly drew my attention. And in particular, it's a multimedia. It's a photo that has been photoshopped to outline the hand and the cup. And then there's these drops of blood that have been created. It looks like felt. So two different images that have been blended together here. I would say the font that was used in the title, having the outline while playful, is maybe a little too playful in this particular case. And it detracts from maybe the seriousness. But the ideal thing that I see on here is the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner so that I can go find more information and reach out to Donna with questions if I have any. So, and she has a pullout quote. That's also really a lovely choice there. So here's a poster that I created 8 years ago for a presentation at an art library conference. So it's important to know the context here. This is for other art librarians. And looking at this particular poster, I'll point out the things that I like. This is where I discovered the Noun project. So I used it thoroughly, both for the installation project that I'm talking about, as well as examples here on my poster. I used arrows to show a non-conventional flow around a poster. I needed people to follow it around in a clockwise manner. I would say, I will also say that I have more text on this poster than I would recommend, but at this particular conference, posters are put up for 2.5 days, and people are encouraged to wander and read posters at their leisure. So I wasn't guaranteed a conversation with somebody looking at this poster. So I had to make a choice between being cryptic and concise and putting up enough information for people to actually understand the context of this poster. Nevertheless, I think there's a little bit of clutter. I probably could have made more about what images to include and which ones could have been left out. I didn't have to show all 7 iterations of the design of the posters that I was creating for the library. I could have chosen 2 or 3 and leave a little more room for white space. So not too harsh of a critique. And this last one is merely for entertainment. It was clever. It was done by another health sciences librarian. From 20, 30 feet away, you see this animal outline. You think it from a distance, it looks like an owl. You get up a little closer, you realize it's a cat, and it draws you. Top title, Ask Me About My Cat, which is a joke within sort of library circles, I think. And then they get to the gist, which is, and while you're here, why don't we have a talk about my longitudinal qualitative study of connected health cities. So I think it's clever. I don't know that I necessarily like the rest of the poster, but it was a clever idea, and it certainly caught my attention. But I'm going to leave it at this last screen and offer it up to Q&A, both for the audience in the room and for the people who are online, if they have any questions for me, and I will try to answer any questions for Donna as well. Please.
So when you talked about pulling any photo from the web, would just putting a link not be enough for credit, or?
So I'm going to repeat the question. If I pull an image from a website and include it into my poster in order to give attribution or cite? Is giving a link sufficient? And the answer technically is going to be no. If you look at the Modern Language Association or the American Psychological Association guides, APA or MLA guides, and the Marriott Library has citation guides, much like all of the other pages that we have, they will give you a recommendation on the exact way to cite an object that is found, an image that is found online. So it's still going to ask you to attribute the author or the creator of that object. It's going to ask you for a title of some kind. So it's either the title that was given by the person who posted it online, or if there is no title, then a description of sort of what is contained within that object. And then the date that it was pulled off of the web, so that we know that when that URL goes dead, because they go dead at some point, at this point in time, this is where this object existed, and then the URL. So those are the main elements that they'll be asking you to put in there. So now you'll note that, I mean, in my own slideshow here, this is purely for educational purposes. I didn't do full citations on mine, but that was intentional. You know, these images I pulled off of this website, it is a tiny portion of the website. There's, you know, 100 million objects in these websites, and I'm choosing one thing from the main page, and I'm directing you to them. It's referring to them. And this presentation has no intention of being public. It is educational. So there's an entirely different sort of purpose here. But good practice would have said that I would have put on the URL and then the creator of this particular object if I knew who that was, that sort of thing. So you have to choose the balance of intention and proper attribution. At minimum, giving credit where credit is due, and letting your viewer know where they can go to find more information about that particular image. So it's a great question. No other questions? Well, I will conclude my presentation with that. Again, I will welcome you, encourage you to reach out and contact me. Donna and I, once again, have consultation forms available. You can click on these links, or you can look us up in the university directory and find our email addresses and reach out to us directly. So thank you very much.
Oh, and then I just want to remind you all, if you have logged in to the Zoom call in real time, you are, your attendance has already been taken care of. And if you are watching the video later, please make sure you go to the Education Series page and fill out that evaluation form with your unit. And that is how I can track your attendance that way. Thank you all so much. And I'm so sorry for all the technical issues.